podcast is all about you guys, your journey in music. We'll talk about Chawa and, you know, the Grammy nominated record, obviously, and then the new album that you have coming out April 2nd.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Joe's got his daughter with him, which I love too. That's awesome. So first of all, Joseph, where were you born and raised?
Right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Yep.
Okay.
Born and bred.
What about you, Joe? Were you also born and raised in New Orleans?
I was born and raised in New England.
Okay.
And basically, I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 till about 22 or 3, and then I packed my bags and moved right down to New Orleans, dove right in.
Wow. So, well, real quick, Joseph, how did you get into music? Born and raised in New Orleans. I'm sure. I mean, obviously, huge scene down there.
Yeah, but my dad actually, he's the one that introduced me to music. In the late 60s, early 70s, he was doing Mardi Gras Indian music, and he and Big Chief Bo Dallas Sr. They got together and they did a collaboration of Mardi Gras Indian music mixed with funk music, and they kind of created this own little genre. And it kind of exploded, and they went on tour all over the world, and they created like a different platform for Mardi Gras Indian music to be accepted, because traditionally it's more of a root music. Mm-hmm. And, you know, only people whose understanding of the tradition will kind of get the music until you kind of blend it in with this funk groove, and all of a sudden it has something. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, I was always around it, and at about 10 years old, my dad started taking me on tour with him.
Wow, I was going to ask you if you had a chance to check that out.
I literally started at the age of 10. My first time being on a big stage, other than doing smaller festivals, was the 1996 Olympics. That was in Atlanta. So like I kind of threw into the fire a little bit. And right after that, I was overseas. So it's kind of like, this is the ball game right here. And I kind of had a firsthand experience of the tour life, how to travel, what it means to be a musician versus just someone who loves music.
Sure.
So, yeah, I kind of got that introduction early on from my dad. And just been doing it ever since. So a lot of time when people ask me, how long have you been doing music? And I tell them about 25 years. And they look at me and it's like, impossible. But
right,
that's kind of what it is. I just started at an early age, and just fell in love with being able to make people dance and make people feel good just by my presence. Mm-hmm. I felt like that was such an awesome thing to watch my dad and Bo Dallas Sr. be able to get on stage and introduce this music to people who have never, for the most part, have never even heard it. When
sure.
you go to these different countries, and the language barrier is an issue, but somehow music is universal to where it don't matter what I'm saying, the vibe that I'm giving off of this stage is making someone else feel good, and that's what I kind of fell in love with as a kid.
I love that. And did you always play trombone? Was that the first instrument you learned how to play?
No, actually, Joseph Mays is our trombone player.
Oh, sorry.
We have 3 Joes in the group, so
okay.
It happens. We actually have 3.
Oh, you sing. Sorry.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, my bad. So
it happens.
So what was the first instrument you learned how to play?
Actually, the first instrument I learned how to play was trumpet.
Okay, trumpet.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a trumpet player. And so throughout that process of me being on the road and, learning, other musicians and their techniques, I was trying to be a trumpet player in my early years. I kind of stopped playing the trumpet when I went to college. Just was a lot. It was hard to do, not the instrument itself, but it was just hard balancing playing an instrument, being a full-time dad, college. It was a lot. Me sewing my Mardi Gras Indian suit, that takes a lot of time and dedication as well. So kind of trumpet is the one thing that kind of fell to the side because I had to remove something. So the trumpet was the one thing. And I kind of wish I didn't because, I mean, I still love it. I just don't have the time and dedication it takes to be great.
Sure. I'm sure you can still pick it up and play though.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, nothing like our trumpet player really in Barnes, but I can do a note.
Well, with like the performance you did with your dad at the Olympics and doing tours with him, were you a vocalist then?
Yeah. I was always a vocalist then. I did a lot of background vocals for my dad. I actually rapped on one of my dad's albums that he put out. I mean, that was one of the talents I kind of found out that I had along my journey of growing up. I can actually kind of put words together. So, but the new Chawa album, I actually have some rap verses on there as well. So it's kind of like just coming full circle, just taking all these things that I've learned over the past 25 years and kind of making it work for me, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Joe, so you said you went to Berkeley School of Music. You're the drummer. Hopefully I'm getting the right Joes here, correct? So was the drum kit the first instrument you learned? Like, how did you get into music?
Yeah, I've just been tapping and beating on stuff since I was her age.
Oh, wow. Okay. Was your parents or your family musical at all? Or was it just kind of a passion you had?
I think they were musical. They were definitely music enthusiasts and had knowledge of music, and would always take me to see performances when I was a kid, and really nurtured my love of discovering new music and whatever I was in growing up at the time. And that was what I love about music, is that was like sort of the one thing that when you're going through your awkward teenage years, that was like the one thing that my parents and I could always relate about. You could always talk about music, and even if there was like, when you're going through your brooding 15-year-old wanting to, rebel phase.
Sure.
Music. Sometimes the conversations were like, yeah, I don't like this. But but it was still, it was like, let's explore.
Right. So did you do drumline, or were you in like bands in high school or anything? Like, tell me about the process of getting into Berkeley. I mean, you obviously have to be very, very good at your craft to get into that school.
I was just I think I don't know that to be honest, I didn't quite know that it was going to be as difficult as it was. I kind of went in and was like, kind of star-eyed and naive. I think everybody is to a certain degree, but then you go and you're sort of like a big fish in a small pond, and then you see these drummers that are there, and it's like playing it's like playing football in high school, and then like going to a school where it's like
going to Nebraska or something.
Oh, guys, you want to toss the ball around?
Right. I've heard that before, where like, if you were the guitar player, for example, like you're the best, everyone's the best guitar player in their town that are all going to Berkeley, or everyone's the best drummer there that's going. Was it intimidating? Kind of like, did you ever, were you in a band there and performing out around other people that are all extremely good at what they do? Yeah.
Too numerous to name.
Okay.
The folks that I got a chance to play with and watch play and play around. Now it's a little bit of a situation because, ultimately, we get to see a lot of, I get to see a lot of these folks on tour, playing the same festival or something like that. And I'll still be like, oh man, that guy's so good. Or that girl could sing, or whatever it is. It's just like, it's like an all-star situation, but it's also inspiring. And I learned a lot of what to do and do at Berkeley. And, I think the thing is that it taught me is that you always have to remain a student of your instrument and your craft. And that just because you don't have somebody grading you or teaching you in a classroom, it's up to you as an artist to proliferate your craft and your music. And in that sense, that really was the best training, was to learn how to teach yourself.
And what took you down to Louisiana? Like what was the decision there?
I was obsessed with New Orleans music and culture.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I discovered the Meters in high school. I discovered the Neville Brothers. My dad would travel down to New Orleans a lot. He was a businessman. And he'd always bring back, records, and he'd tell me about Tipitinas and how there was a basketball backboard and net in the middle of the club, and just all these, random things that were so great. And he would take me to see a lot of live music when I was just a kid. So, and we listened to a lot of stuff in the car and on the stereo at home. And he was just really, really supportive. Oh, honey, it's okay.
Were you did you have did you know anything about the Mardi Gras like Indian music at that point, or was this all new to you when you moved down to Louisiana?
Well, when I was 18 years old, I had sort of I really had a kind of like a spiritual experience to an extent. I got a chance to be able to spend some time with Idris Muhammad, who's a famous drummer from New Orleans, who was like one of the most prolific drummers from New Orleans that also moved, and played around the country and the world. But I saw him perform when I was 18, and he was playing with John Scofield, and he basically the style that he plays in is very much the the second line brass band, traditional brass band, Mardi Gras Indian tradition. He playing, he'd tell me like, oh, I'm playing the tambourine patterns that the Mardi Gras Indians play, or I'm playing the bass drum part on the tom tom, or I'm playing the brass band like bass drum, between my bass drum foot and my hi-hat, and he'd be telling me all this stuff. And he really explained to me that I needed to go to New Orleans if I was going to go to the source. And that was a huge influence on me. And that I honey, here. Sorry.
It's okay. Again, I have a 4-year-old next door, or not next door, but in the next room.
Her sub. She's going to be taking over for me when I can't hack it anymore.
Right. Yeah. There's your new drummer.
Ready. So basically, I was in a, okay. Hi. Sorry. This is what being a musician is about, just as much as anything else, is like trying to spend time with your family and be able to, have a relationship with your kids, even though you're, playing late at night or doing, So yeah, so it's just been an infatuation of mine. I've had one of my best friends went to Tulane, and I just started going down and visiting, going to Jazz Fest, and I loved the music and was infatuated with it, and I just kept going and going and going.
I love it. And I was going to say what I love about, not love, but what I think is really kind of cool with the whole pandemic and Zoom, like Joseph and I were talking about earlier, is that now we have this kind of behind the curtain look into certain artists, like your daughter's sitting on your lap, like what else would this have ever, occurred? I think it's just so cool
I
in that sense.
great because it really shows you, it takes away the pomp and circumstance and shows you like this is what it is. I mean, this is an important part,
Right, exactly. So Joseph, back to you. How did you guys link up? Like, were you, I mean, obviously you performed with your dad and you're doing tours and playing at a very, very early age. When did you branch off and kind of form your own groups? And then how did that lead into Chawa?
Well, like Joe was saying, he was in New Orleans just playing around, and Joe happened to land a gig with my dad.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the introduction to Joe and myself, is him playing in the band with my dad, and we kind of since then has formed our own, friendship and developed into a more close-knit family. Actually, it's like it's been so many years. I can't even tell you the year it was. It's been so long ago, but yeah, Joe was playing drums in the band with Dad, and he was the lead band member in that band.
Mm-hmm.
And in New Orleans, like great musicians come and they pass each other like, through the night. Like you might be playing with this guy, you might be playing with this guy, and it's just all about a collaboration of just playing great music.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along that line, Joe decided, hey, let's start something else, let's do something else, because it's like never can play too much music,
Sure.
So it was kind of like an excuse to just play some more, honestly. And it developed into a band. And I kind of played around with the band early on, but I was still in the band with my dad as well.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a in and out thing for a while. And then, I kind of got back into the band years later after playing with my dad, after doing like some other stuff, features and stuff like that. I got back in the band, and I kind of like this is where I needed to be, because with my dad band, it was a great band, obviously, still is. It's just it was more of kind of my dad's thing,
Sure.
And
Sure.
me being in the Chawa band, it kind of allowed me a little bit more room to grow, a little bit more room to experiment. And with that, I kind of fell in love with that, and we just been gelling ever since. Like I said earlier, like the band in its entirety is more of a sense of a family, more than anything. If you would kind of classify, we would kind of be like the mixed up family that just plays music together,
Sure.
But yeah, that was really like, it was all about just a reason to play music.
Mm-hmm.
And you never need too many excuses to play music, but fortunately enough, that is what the Chawa band was developed from, just really a reason to play music, to make people dance. And we still try to stick to that till this day.
Sure. Yeah. And so once you guys, was there a point, or when you started recording records with Chawa, were you still kind of jumping back and forth between your dad's band and Chawa, or did you guys kind of set a precedence as like, this is kind of going to be the full-time thing?
I think it kind of happened organically, honestly. It wasn't that we just sat down and said, this is what we're going to do. It was kind of like early on, let's see if we can do this. And then it became very apparent that we had something. And then it was kind of like, okay, let's do this now. So you can kind of see, you can actually hear that in the music, the transition from the music of let's play just because we want to play. And now it's like, we're actually good. Let's play, make people understand how good this is, So yeah.
And then talk about a validating moment. I mean, was it your second record, Spy Boy, the one that got nominated for a Grammy?
Spy Boy, the record that got nominated for a Grammy. That record is that's the last record. That was the record that I kind of came back into the band on.
Okay.
It's a Spy Boy record.
So in between, you were still playing quite a bit with your father in his band, and then you kind of jump back in. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah,
Like,
it was. Yeah, at that particular time, it was more of a on my part, more of a still transitioning back and forth. You know, it was a lot of things going on in life at that particular time, a lot of moving parts. So like to be established in the band, I kind of became more established the following year after the Grammy nomination.
oh, okay, that's interesting. Tell
Yeah,
me about
yeah.
that Grammy nomination, though.
A lot of
Wow,
people,
that's
don't understand that part of it because the band has made a lot of different moves, and you know, you have certain members who was in the band at that particular time, and you know, we've gained members since then. So that Grammy nomination, again, like I said, that was on the heels of me coming back into the band. So Joe can actually speak more about the Grammy nomination than I could, actually.
oh, okay. Well, Joe, how about that? I mean, that must have been. I mean, going to school for music, you know, you're grinding through Berkeley, you move down to Louisiana, and now you get nominated for a Grammy, which is like obviously the highest achievement or what everyone would be striving for, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolute. Hold on for a second.
Reading a book.
Yeah. It's nothing like having a kid,
right?
as much as I loved having a Grammy, it's funny because I'll actually tell you a funny story. Is that my wife got pregnant right before we went to the Grammys, and so I was telling my dad, you know, like very proud moment as a son, to, you know, calling my dad and telling him, you know, Dad, I got nominated for a Grammy, and he's like, you know, of course he was so proud and over the moon, and then called him, you know, maybe a month later or something, and I said, I've got some great news. He was like, is it better than a Grammy? And I was like, I hope so. And I said, Jesse's pregnant, and he started like tearing up, and he was like, that's so much better than a Grammy.
That's awesome. That really puts everything in perspective there, right?
Well, it does. But I mean, I got to tell you, it's been incredibly humbling because the amount of musicians in New Orleans that you know, never quite got their due. You know, it's a you know, people pay their dues for so long in New Orleans. So just to even be considered in that category was a just absolute thrill. It was humbling. It was really kind of unbelievable. I'm still kind of pinching myself, to be honest with you, because you know, we've got so many musicians in New Orleans that you know, sort of fly under the radar that are just legendary. And you know, so to get the Grammy nomination and to go and actually, you know, we went to the Grammys. We played at also an amazing coincidence is that we played with PJ Morton, Sean Ardoin, Cedric Burnside, all of the Memphis chapter musicians of there's in the Recording Academy that we're in the Memphis chapter, which is basically like chapter. And so the Grammy Museum of Mississippi partnered with the Grammy Museum in LA, and all of the Mississippi chapter nominees played a concert at the Grammy Museum. it was like during Grammy week when we actually, were able to go places and congregate.
What a time it was.
And at the time we played, which was a few days before the Grammys, John Paul White was in the audience with his wife. And he's actually one of the owners of the record label that we're assigned to, that's putting out our new record called Single Records. So he was actually in the audience, and he's also very famous himself. He was in that duo, the Civil Wars.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and it has a very prolific career that he's continued with, and his wife was like, "Oh, they're really good," So that started a conversation, and here we are, a week away from them releasing, our next record. And
that's amazing.
Just the things that you see in that environment, being on the red carpet and the whole 9 yards. I remember my wife was on the red carpet, and they have these two different lines. Basically, when you get to the red carpet, it's kind of like one for the actual nominees, and then an entrance for the nominees, and then an entrance for whoever the guests are, whether it's your spouse or your parents or your date or whatever the regiment, whatever the case is. So my wife got up a little bit ahead of me because we had to, we were in line with like John Batiste and all these, like, you're pinching yourself, going like, "Hey, going," and then so she gets up there, and like all these huge, like ultra famous celebrities are like whizzing by, and with their like security details and everything, and then so like we hear this commotion, and it sounds like they're like moving like the head of state through a building. It's like, yeah, with like Secret Service and stuff. Like a security team that I've never seen before, and it was Cardi B. And
oh wow!
Dress that is like, probably 6 feet in circumference. She's got this huge ball gown. And then Lady Gaga by, and my wife is up there, and she goes, "Gaga, I love you." And Lady Gaga stops, like rushing through, and just stops and looks at her, and she says, "I love you too."
Wow, that's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Like this stuff like that is just, we got to meet George Clinton, and John Prine was there. God rest his soul. And you're just surrounded by people who are, doing everything in the music industry, and it feels like the nice part about that validation is that you feel like you deserve that seat at the table. Like it's empowering. Like, keep doing this. So whether we ever get nominated in the future again, and you see artists that have been nominated like 15 times over their career and then just won at that ceremony or something. Sure. So it's like you realize how much it takes to to have longevity in this career is a blessing. So all that comes with that is just not lost on us, and I'm very grateful and very humbled, and and it allows me to keep doing this right here.
Sure. Yeah, very, very inspiring. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Joseph, back to you, because you're holding the new record, My People. I love that you had that up earlier. So tell me about this new album. It comes out on April 2nd. Where were you guys when this whole pandemic hit? Was the record done? Like, tell me how that all kind of unfolded.
Yeah, actually, the record was done when the pandemic hit. We were actually ready to release the record. But it kind of pushed us back on the timeline, and it allowed us a little bit more time to, not really work on the record, because I think by that time we were pretty confident in what we had.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allowed us more time to just get together as a band and work. Like, that's one thing I can say throughout the pandemic, we have kind of taken advantage of this time and just worked and worked and worked. We actually already working on the new album.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like Joe was saying, like, you kind of, when you're surrounded by all these musicians that's so good at what they do, it kind of forces you to work. Like, there's no time to sit around and worry about accolades or what we have already got accomplished. We want to just keep on working and keep on pushing. So yeah, when the pandemic came, gave us that opportunity to kind of master these songs as far as performance wise, create new songs, just in that vibe that we were in. Because this album was actually created on tour. We were literally on
Really?
tour when most of these songs were created. Most of these songs were kind of worked out. Now, we recorded in New Orleans, but most of the content and the ideas and things were just created by being on tour, going from state to state, late night hotel room sessions, like Joe said, beating on the steering wheel in the van, in the hotel room, in the airport. Like, we literally have a song on there that is called Morning Glory. And me and Andrew Noski was laid over in the airport. Like, the rest of the band was able to go, and we unfortunately had to have a 2 or 3 hour layover. And he had this little small Casio keyboard in the airport, and we ran out of things to do, playing Mario Kart in the airport. And it was like, come on, man, let's make a groove. And I was like, well, I got this idea. It's like, come on. And we kind of did that. So it's like those organic moments is what created this album. And there's so many different moments just like that, where that's in this album, whether it be with me and him, or him and Aurelian, or me and Jose, and Joe and Ari. Like, it's all, everybody kind of just put together their own feel to create this album. That's why I think people are going to love it so much, because it's not coming from one particular view. It's the band view and it's the band sound. So I think if anything you can take from this is it's an authentic Chawa sounding album, because it literally, it was like an organically made album with no frills or none of that. It was like, let's just do music.
That's awesome. So you guys were able to. That's awesome. So it's kind of got different, like you said, you were different places. Do you think that kind of comes out in the record? I mean, like, you're in an airport when one of the songs written, and you talk about being in different states.
I feel like a lot of the album, it plays off of some of my experiences throughout I'm on tour. Obviously, we have some things that we speak about in the album that relates to what's going on in the world overall. So yeah, I definitely believe that the timing and the places that we were at and the things we were doing and what's going on around us all plays a major part in the album. Like, coincidentally, the title of the album,
Right.
My People, that song was created by Aurelian Barnes, our trumpet player, and Andrew Nowski, our keyboard player. And that song it's about a lot of things, but when it comes down to it, it's really about everyone understanding that no matter what you're going through, no matter your background, no matter what your situation is, and vice versa for me and anyone else, at the end of the day, we all are the same people. We're all human. We all want to be treated with the same respect. We all deserve the same love. So we kind of got to get into the mindset of understanding that our differences are so small compared to the things that we have in common as human. We kind of got to get away from that divide that we are in as humans. And right now, more prevalently than anything in this country, we want to be more together than divided, because we see what being divided can do to just humankind in general. I won't even say our country, just humankind in general. Like being divided has never worked out well for us in no part of history.
Mm-hmm.
So that song, it kind of embodies that whole ideology of we are together in this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be together and let's help each other, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. What a great message, especially now, and how, yeah, obviously you already said it, everything that's already going on in this world. Did you have the whole record tracked prior to the pandemic, or like were you able to go in and be like really dive in and listen to it and say, we should add this or did you add
Well,
any songs to it?
we did have the opportunity, and we did go back and we made small tweaks, very,
Okay.
very small tweaks. Our musical director, Ari Title, he had a vision for the sound of the album, and he did not want it to sound so how would you say, I guess, more commercialized.
Sure.
We kind of wanted a more authentic sound and vibe to it. And I think we kind of nailed that early on. And I think if we'd went back and tweaked too much, it would have changed the dynamic of the sound that we were trying to get off.
Yeah.
So it was more of a exercise in patience and like just don't touch it. It's great.
Right.
Don't touch it. I think that was more, and especially me, like I kind of have this thing to where I always feel like it can be better. It can be better. It can be better.
Right.
But I kind of got to understand that sometimes you don't want to touch it because you can mess it up.
Yeah, you can like overproduce it or something. Yeah.
Yeah. We were kind of at that point, and I think, but overall as a band, I think we all agreed that we had something that was representing of what we wanted to. So we didn't want to kind of mess with it too much.
Right. That must have been difficult because you obviously everyone was stuck inside and you said the record was done prior to the pandemic and now we're at over a year later. Just having those songs sitting there being like, should we go in and touch it? Or it's like one of those things.
The great thing about our band, anybody who's ever seen our band, they can tell you we are a live music kind of band. Mm-hmm. So we just feel like we're gonna leave the album the way it is, and we'll make any changes that we want to on stage.
The live setting,
and
sure.
give the people something else to even look forward to. If you want to hear the album, great, buy the album and listen to it. If you want to hear the album in a different format, come to the show and you're going to have what we call the Chawa experience, So it's going to be those same songs and you may hear something completely different on the song. You're like, hey, I didn't recognize that part. And, that's part of it. Like we did a show recently and we were just working on a song, just working on a new song and rehearsal. And we decided, hey, let's try it. Let's play it. And it went over great. The audience had no idea that they were the first people to ever hear this song.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's those type of things that going to a Chawa show affords you that Chawa experience. You may hear a song that may not even be on the album. And it gives you something to look forward to. Or you may hear a song that's on the album and we may play with it and say, hey, let's do this. Depending on how the audience is vibing to it, we may change it up just for that specific audience. So it's an experience. So that's one of the things we didn't want to just get into because we're great at changing things and mixing things up. And if we'd have did that on the album, we would probably still be mixing things up.
You'd be still working on it. Yeah. Well, you said you were able to play recently. Like you guys have been able to do some shows and actually expose people to the new songs.
We have few and far between. Obviously, due to COVID, we have to do things more via Zoom and.
So you've done like the virtual shows.
Yeah, virtual shows and stuff like that. We actually were able to have a small piece of an audience at this particular show that I'm referring to. So that was great to be able to just perform in front of live people and feel their feedback and stuff like that. That was great. just looking forward to being able to get in front of a full audience again. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's looking like it's in the near future, hopefully. I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, they announced Outside Lands in San Francisco, which is a huge festival, and that's supposed to happen in October. So hopefully you guys will be able to get out and tour this record sooner than later.
Yeah, October is looking great. I can't wait for October to come here. I hope even before October, honestly.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to, like, again, just being in front of a live audience, man, is just a different feel. Like I said at the beginning of this interview, that's like my main reason for even wanting to be on stage, is to connect with other people and make them dance and make them feel good. And it's kind of hard to feel that connection via Zoom or live broadcast, but we make it work. We make it work.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait till things open up, because I'm very intrigued to see you guys play live. It looks like it's such a rad experience. I do have one more question for both of you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
All right, go. You want to go, Joe, first, Joe? Or I'll go first. Okay. Any advice for aspiring artists? Work. Like, I know it's kind of cliche, but nothing beats hard work. No matter what it is, no matter what kind of music that you're doing, you will not be successful by a whim or by just dumb luck. Like, every successful artist that has ever done it, the one thing that they have in common is they don't stop working. They don't get complacent. I mean, and this is some advice that I've gotten from artists that's huge on, total different levels. And the one thing that every artist always tell me is, man, just keep working. Like, keep perfecting your craft, because no matter how good you are, you can always be greater. And even if you're that good, it's someone who's never heard of you before. And the only way they're going to hear you is if you work. Just keep constantly working. So that would be my advice for any up and coming artist, just to keep working at your craft and find new ways to perfect your craft.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Joseph. What about you, Joe? Do you got any advice for aspiring artists?
Save your money, kid. No, seriously. This comes with so many peaks and valleys, and obviously, we couldn't have had more of a valley this past year, or as far as like being at a low point. So the thing is like, honestly, there's like, I can sit here, being in my early 40s and say all these, different things. But honestly, just echoing what Booga just said, it's like I'll tell you something that that Quincy Jones told me when I was 18 years old.
Wow, you got to meet Quincy Jones at 18. That's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something that Quincy Jones told me.
Casually, like
it was
We're sharing an ice cream cone. Sorry, go ahead.
It was the second day in New Orleans ever. So my dad, I'll tell you the anecdote behind this, is that my dad was in broadcasting. So he took me down to New Orleans for the first time when I was on a break between my first and second semester of college. And he they used to have a broadcasting convention down here for many years, every year, annually. It was called the NatP convention. And it was just a big, industry convention. And I'm walking the floor, and I got my name tag on, and I've got like long hair and stuff like that, and I see Quincy Jones, and he's being mobbed by people that are like presidents of media companies and stuff like that. And I go, I sort of wait my turn, and when everything seemed to be kind of settling down, I rushed in and was like, "Hey, Mr. Jones, my name's Joe, and I said, I'm a aspiring musician. I go to Berkeley, and I know you went to Berkeley, and I was just wondering if you had any advice for me. And he looked at my name tag, and he goes, well, Joseph. He just thinks about it for a second, he pauses, and he's like, get good. And I was like, like completely disheveled, crestfallen, like, oh, I'm going to music school. Of course I'm trying to get good. And then he said, and he must have seen the look on my face, and he said, look, the reason I say this is because I see too many young people trying to sell their brand or their craft, or their record or their demo at a young age. And if they just spent that time working on their craft, it would come to them. So don't spend all your time trying to sell something that hasn't been really is not your best work. And so he said, if your talent will get you noticed. So don't spend your time trying to sell yourself. Spend your time working on your craft, and it will work itself out. And I really didn't understand that even after he explained it, because I was so young and inexperienced. And now I get it, because the only way that it's going to work is if you spend all of your time and energy making it as good as possible and as personal as possible and passionate as possible. If this is something, I say that music chose me. So I would say if in the beginning, if it doesn't seem like something that inspires you, maybe do something else. There are also plenty of jobs in the music industry besides actually performing music. And those people are like our team of management and, producers, publicists, road managers, crew, like all that stuff. That is a job that makes all of this possible for us. And, the other part of it is that, you're going to have hills and valleys, and just don't quit, like just keep pushing through, keep your head down, keep working. And I was at the lowest point in my my life, personally and professionally, when I started Jawa. I'm in recovery. I have like 11 and a half years of being sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
4 years right now.
Oh, congrats, man. That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was about 6 or 8 months sober. It was the summertime in New Orleans, which is notoriously dead. I called a friend of mine who's a famous New Orleans musician who's also in recovery, and we went out to dinner, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, nobody's calling me. I screwed everything up. Blah 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 blah. And he was like, well, what sort of music do you like to play? And I was like, and at this time I was already in Monk's band, and hadn't gotten fired from that yet. So so basically, like I kept my stuff together, through that. And he was like, well, I said, well, I am infatuated with Mardi Gras Indian music. And he was like, okay, well, do that. And I was like, right. Okay. He was like, just figure it out. Like, go to the source. But here we are, basically like, 10, 11 years later. And it's and that's another part of it for me, is that, like, being able to have being able to account for all of my actions, whether I screw something up or not, I just still screw tons of stuff up.
Sure.
But at least I can hold myself accountable and try to, make amends when I have, done something or said something, stupid or, harsh or whatever the case may be while I'm do all this. So it's, I'm just in a place of gratitude for being, where I am today.
I love that. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
The one thing we can take from this.
Oh, you muted yourself, Joseph.
From this entire interview that me and Jones had the same thought process.